Are you maybe considering adopting? Hey y'all, my name is Kalua and welcome to Kalua's Journey. I'm going to be discussing growing up in foster care.
I am in no way educated in this field. I'm not an expert or a professional.
I simply tell you some of the pros and cons that I have personally experienced. Born addicted to heroin, at 2 years old, my grandmother took me to the social service building, as she described it, to put me into foster care.
I was fostered by a married couple.
Eroy and Barbara. They have both passed on, that they both rest in peace. They did adopt two other girls. I don't think that they were fostered. I do believe that they adopted them right away. Whereas I was fostered, my mother, I guess they were giving her opportunities to come back into my life. And unfortunately, every time we went back to court, it was like she had relapsed again. Two other foster children, well, one was a year apart from me, and the other one was just a few months apart. So I got to grow up with siblings my age. They did have children of their own, separate and not together. Eroy's children I interacted with every once in a while. But Barbara's kids were in close contact with us, two boys and two girls. Now, I did have a decent upbringing financially, so I wasn't like in the projects or anything. I did have an open adoption. So that meant that my grandmother could still visit with me. In fact, she would maybe like once a month or every couple of months, she would come pick me up. I got to get acquainted with some of my cousins and a few of my siblings. My grandmother had about five kids. My mom, her sisters, they all had like six kids. So it was a lot of kids going on. Imagine that became a bit much for my grandmother. At least that was the explanation she gave me as to why she took me to foster care. That, and she said God put it on her heart. So Eroy passed away before I actually got adopted. So Barbara was the only one who is listed on the papers for my adoption. He was more like good cop, and she was more like, the disciplinary. I do have some good memories from both. After he passed, there wasn't the balance of strict and then kind. It was just strict, strict, strict. She wasn't very affectionate. And I mean, Barbara to understand getting married in an older age. She was around the age of what my biological grandmother was. Adopting three girls and starting a life together. I have to believe that that had to be very hard for her to continue mothering us three and doing it on her own.
Because I kid it couldn't have been in her plans. Clearly.
I didn't grow up with hugs and kisses or anything, so that did play a role into my lack of affection as an adult. I experienced some not so good treatment in terms of the way that I was talked to or the way I was handled or not tended to in certain areas as a child. But being a parent who has made my own missteps, I do understand that having children doesn't come with a manual, and you can have 50 million children, and every single one of them could be different.
They could perceive what's happening different and all be in the same situation.
Going to visit my grandmother, unfortunately, I did suffer through some not so nice experiences.
Trigger warning, I will be discussing some topics that some will find overwhelming. And if that's the case for you, refer to the end of the video where I will have numbers to hotlines that you can reach. They even offer chat, talk, and text.
I was SA'd at around the age 7 or 8. It was my grandmother's brother. It's not something I told anyone until I was like a little older. How I processed it as a child was, if I say something, this could potentially stop my visitation with my bio grandmother. Because I had a lack of an emotional attachment to my fostered family, I had a really strong emotional connection with my grandmother. So she was like the only thing I was emotionally tied to. It was difficult to hold in. I started to act out in school. By fourth and fifth grade, my behavior just got worse and worse. at one point in time being placed in therapy. I would have a scheduled taxi to pick me up every like Thursday after school, and they would take me to the Catholic Charities, and I would have therapy there. And that was definitely my foster mother's attempt to try and figure out why all of a sudden this behavior just clicked on. I don't think they were able to find anything, or I'm not really sure why the therapy was stopped. I remember not feeling love. I was always in some type of a play, performance, I mean, getting some type of award. I only remember my foster mother coming to one award ceremony for how I felt because she must not have been to quite a few prior to. I had a lot of insecurities. I had a lot of feelings of abandonment. I had a lot of feelings of isolation because I was by myself so often. I spent a lot of time in the room because I couldn't connect emotionally to anyone in the family. Some of them, even the kids, some of them were like older kids. They were a little harsh. I think if I didn't have all the issues that I was already going through mentally, maybe I would have just, oh, that's just something kids do, But I think it was a lot more intense for me. My feelings and emotions were already extremely overwhelming, and I didn't understand them at that age. Around age 13, I was like, I don't even want to be here anymore. Before I was officially adopted, I would get a visit from a social worker maybe every few months. And I remember distinctively telling her over and over, like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. After I was officially adopted, my mind was just like further broken because I felt like the system didn't care. I felt like the people around me didn't care. I felt like my biological family didn't. It was just like a lot in my mind. Once I got to high school, too much for my adopted mother to handle. Understandably so. I was getting in trouble left and right in school. Therefore, at age 14, she took a pins out on me, which made me a ward of the state. I spent time in like group homes. I would always AWOL. I used to run away from home, probably I think for the first time at like age 13. So when they sent me to group homes, I was running away from there too. Then they put me in lockdown facilities, and it was just like an ongoing cycle. At one point, Barbara's eldest daughter took custody of me. I felt kind of the same there. Like there was no connection. One person that I formed like I guess a false connection with, like I would call him my brother because he was closer in age. In all actuality, he was my nephew. Because my siblings, who were Barbara's biological children, were so much older than me, I just called them aunt and uncle. I didn't really address them by their first names. This one was technically my nephew. It was her eldest daughter's son. I think at that point I was going through like just trying to emotionally grab hold of someone, but he was not so nice growing up. I don't know why or how I formulated any type of bond. I think maybe because he was just the only one in close range in family once I moved with her daughter. So I don't know. I was acting out there too. So it was like in and out of like group homes and stuff basically. I would like live with her, then I'd be running away, and then I'd go back to a group home, and then I'd run away from the group. Like it was like an ongoing cycle. And then at like 16, I was being grown to ended up, a pregnant teenager. That would be a story for another video. If you're going to adopt someone, or if you have a bonus member of your family, pay more attention to the way you're interacting with them. Oh, they're family. I'm just going to treat them like I treat all my other family. And that's beautiful. But sometimes, whether or not the child is in an open adoption, whether or not they're aware of the fact that they're adopted, whether or not they're just being fostered and they don't know whether they're staying or going or what, it matters for you to be kind and make sure, especially not mentioning that they're not family. Like that's some of the harshest things. And it's like if you're an adult, you should probably be speaking to your children and make sure that they're not doing that either. They shouldn't be anyway, like in school or anywhere. Just be mindful, I would say, of with someone who may potentially be going through like abandonment or all those other things. Now, some people don't mind. Some people are tough in the mind, and being in group homes and stuff, I had to spend a lot of time with children who were both in and out of foster care, who couldn't find a foster home, who were never placed and spent their entire life in a group home. Speaking on my experiences, hearing their stories and including my experiences, those things matter. The way you speak and handle that child, it seriously matters. If the child is one way and then all of a sudden my advice would be to seek professional help. If you're making a commitment to be someone's family, it could happen with your biological family member. Be willing to stick it out. Now, I don't mean take abuse. You are literally signing a contract saying you are vowing to be this person's family, and if you're just the added family and you didn't sign the contract, for goodness sakes, just be a good human. The pros of adoption were I didn't live like in slums or anything. I was never around like any addict. I had a very decent upbringing. People around me, though there was a lack of emotional attachment, for the most part, they were all decent people. None of them got into like a lot of trouble. As a whole, I think that they were decent family. It was some interactions that I did not agree with. And I'll just say, I was grateful for the pros, the lack of affection, the physical discipline. I am not a fan of. I feel like it did more harm than good. And just, some treatment that I didn't agree with. That was my experience as a foster slash adopted child. When I got older, I went to look for my family.
And to be clear, I was looking for bio family members that either I didn't see or meet at my bio grandmother's house or hadn't seen them since we were really young and for some reason were separated.
I'll share that experience on my next video. All I will say is God does everything for a reason. I dodged a bullet.
A bullet,
Bullet. Bullet.
a bullet.
Thank you for sharing this time with me here on Kalua's journey. And if you don't have anything else to do or you're interested, I rise to stardom. I become a millionaire, a multi-millionaire, billionaire. Hopefully, my story can help someone. Till next time, bye now.
And in case you need to speak with someone, I do have the numbers listed above and down in the description. Hopefully, you can find the help you need. Until next time, I love you.